gathering to give thanks for the opportunity that we've had over the last 6 months. Bringing healing together, phase 2 to life. And like the gravity of the work is very present in our minds. And I guess we could just open up with a little question. How has the experience been for you? And what's sticking on you at this moment?
You know, going into this work, for me, coming out of Hurricane Beryl and getting the chance to spend time with folks, it was really obvious that people wanted spaces to talk and to be heard, and the folks were holding such heaviness. And it's not just the moment or after, but it's what came before as well. And I think we sort of recognized this gap. And we had a beautiful opportunity to step in and provide support imperfectly, you know, just showing up as ourselves with the skills that we have and starting to bring in folks to support those efforts in a way that feels completely different than other ways, you know, that it could have looked like. But for me, what really stood out is how open people have been and how willing folks have been to show up and to be vulnerable and to make the space their own. And there's just so much, again, like heaviness that folks are holding, that we know about it, but to see it and to hear it reflected so many times across each space, it really like amplifies the need to do this work and to continue it.
Not only were we dealing with a natural disaster, but also dealing with colonial conditioning, our community, our own colonial conditioning, and wanting to like take that leap, wanting to actually show up, even though the task is like we're at the very beginning of the work and it feels like palpable, the possibilities that we're walking into. So having people show up in that vulnerability, being open, being honest, them coming in many ways, some people coming in a very fragile state and us being able to hold with the cohorts, all of the things that were surfacing felt so important. Like, I feel as though if we didn't have this platform, I wouldn't want to know what our islands would be like.
It would look completely different.
Yeah. And I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about that because it is really urgent. It's so necessary for us to be able to step into the faith that even though we mightn't be like experts, that we're playing and experimenting and trusting and leaning into our own experiences to inform this work.
I think for me, you know, having the background in psychology and doing mental health work, you tend to see how like unaddressed conditions and, you know, distressed persons who experience distress, how much of a ripple effect it has on like the families, the partners and the community on a whole, you know. And having gone through the burial experience, we could see the impact, the emotional toll that such an experience had, and not only on, you know, persons on the mainland, but persistently throughout the Grenadines. And I think, you know, going in, I wasn't sure how persons would really take it, you know, because each space is very different. You know, we come across unique people who have different backgrounds, different upbringings, you know, different experiences, you know, even if they went through burial. And I think for me, what has been most rewarding about this entire experience, doing both phase 1 and phase 2, is just seeing the growth that people have experienced. You know, you see the apprehension at the beginning of our sessions, and it speaks to what Jess was saying. Like, there's at the beginning that fear, you know, or that uncertainty as to how is this gonna go, you know, what am I gonna experience through this process. And it's just really good to see persons grow from day 1 to day 3. You know, we're providing them with the skills, we're providing them with support. And I just really appreciate the willingness to break down the barriers and break down those walls, and to see them open up and to be vulnerable, but also use these skills and not only be able to like apply them in their lives, but to share them with others, that they could help people in their lives and community on a whole. So I think that is what has been most rewarding for me with this work.
A lot of people are going to have to take time off of work to be able to show up to the offerings, and not everybody has like means and ability to have like sustenance and or space to do things like childcare. So in Mayreau, one of the standout moments for us was being able to welcome children and animals into our space, and have that really change the intimacy and how people were like moving between the children, the space, each other. That felt like something we could further explore if we have the ability to work with more spaces that have that kind of infrastructure, to be able to really support people and our participants in a full way.
You know, I echo what both of you are saying. For me, I think we're at a critical juncture where there's a lot of overlapping of crises, and this has happened, you know, over the course of the last 5 to 10 years. And so you see, we've gone through COVID, we've gone through volcanic eruptions, we've gone through hurricane burial, and even just the change of government most recently. You know, all of these have an impact, and I think Healing Together provides such a great platform, a space for us to be able to tap into resources and like our efforts collectively. I think like the work that we do through the partnerships, it provides like that foundational step for us to be able to grow even larger. Like the networks that we've created with the mental health professionals, I think that's a really, really great start, because not many persons know, you know, who is present, who could provide support. So just starting at that base, you know, and offering those services, I think that's a really good foundation and a good way that we start this work. And I think too, like the sessions that we have and the more people that join, we can generate a like serious advocacy work here with people on the ground. And I think also the fact that we're going in and we're going into different spaces, that puts us at a great position to be part of even the national discourse when it comes to disaster preparedness, emergency response, and things of that nature. I think that is how we could continue to do work collectively. Like, we use what we have done so far as a grounding, as a basis, and then just grow from there. I think these are things that, yeah, we could look into. Or communications, because health promotions is another big thing that we could tap into. And the more visible our work is, the more people see the impact, the more it's going to attract, you know, funding and the right kind of persons who align with the work that we do, who could provide support through their expertise, you know, through finances, through whatever means. And I think that is how we're going to make more impact in the long run.
The biggest theme that came out of Canouan was how impactful grief is, and that we need each other to be able to process loss, because even though we might be losing family members and loved ones, and it affects, you know, an individual, it also like affects the greater community. So having and being in service of that facilitation to process grief and to hospice grief with other people, I think is like another type of urgent work that Canouan made us step into. And that was truly, truly very, for me, deeply moving.
Just seeing how willing people were to acknowledge, you know, this is where we're at, this is what we're experiencing, but to be able to process it in a way that helps them to come out on the other side better, I think that is really something that touched me for Canouan. And just like you, I think, you know, going back is something that we need to do, like very, very soon. It's there, the need is there, it's evident, and I think, you know, the fact that we've managed to establish such a connection with persons in Canouan, it sets a good, you know, footing and groundwork for us to continue the work there.
The core of our work over the last decade has been rooted in Bequia. And it's just in the last year and a half that we've been expanding our work into the southern Grenadines. So coming back to home base always feels special and interesting. The group that we had in Bequia for this phase is very different than the group that we had last phase, right? And I didn't know what to expect, but so much has come forth in such a short space of time, and I think there were a lot of new faces, and I think there was a little bit of apprehension in terms of what to expect. And I mean, this is really thanks to your great facilitation skills, Kimmette, and who you are as a person. Within the first 10 minutes, a lot of walls just came down. Folks started speaking, and the conversation couldn't stop. There has been so much that has been outpouring in terms of what mental health looks like in this country, why it matters, the gaps, how folks have creative ideas in terms of what we could do collectively to change the landscape, how speaking about work around advocacy, sharing personal stories and experiences, because there's always folks who just are so interesting and diverse that share personal experiences in a public way about what they've experienced that normalizes the conversation around mental health.